Barbarians. This will be our first video comparing individual classes, but as I said in my first video, that you can't really do a one-on-one comparison between the classes between 3.5 and 5th edition because the classes are not the same. They're not structured the same. They don't have the same abilities. So we can't do a complete comparison. So we will do this in a series of videos comparing different aspects. So for the Barbarian, we are going to do 3 videos. We are going to start talking about the Barbarian's Rage, because the Rage is the signature of the Barbarian in Dungeons & Dragons. The Barbarian is the primal warrior. He has the most hit points, he's known for his brute strength, and his battle rage. That is the same between 3.5 and 5th edition. Rage is their main thing. After we talk about rage, we will then talk about some things that are similar between the 2 editions, but then we will do a last short video on things that exist in 3.5 that are not in 5th, as well as things that are in 5th that are not in 3.5. So, let us get into this very quickly. Rage. That's what the Barbarian is most known for. That is what everything about the Barbarian is based around, this rage that they have in battle. But let us look at this. Let us look at 3.5 first. This is how we describe the rage. It says here, a barbarian can fly into a screaming blood frenzy a certain number of times per day. In rage, a barbarian gains phenomenal strength and durability, but becomes reckless and less able to defend himself. But what does this rage, what they call the screaming blood frenzy, what does it actually do for you in combat for 3.5? Well, it does a couple of things. It gives us modifiers, because 3.5 loves modifiers. So you go into this rage, you get a +4 to your strength, a +4 to your constitution, a +2 to your will saving throw, but a -2 to your armor class, because as it says, you are becoming incredibly strong and durable, but reckless. So it becomes easier to hit you, but you are much more likely to hit, and you are much more likely to survive, because you now have more hit points. You'll note this +4 to strength. This will give you a +2 to your damage and a +2 to your attack, because almost every attack that the Barbarian makes will be made using strength. So your chance to hit is increased and your damage output is increased. In addition, a +4 to your constitution. That means you are getting 2 extra hit points per level. So a barbarian at 10th level, when he goes into a rage, he gets 20 more hit points because of that rage. First level, of course, he only gets 2 because he's only at first level. At 20th level, he gets a +40. That's extra hit points that he is given while he is in rage. Now, we also have to point out that when the rage ends, he loses these hit points. So say a level 10 barbarian gets his extra 20 hit points. Well, okay. If he drops down to, say, 10 hit points, and then the rage ends, he loses 20 hit points, and now he's at a -10, which in 3rd edition means you're dead. So now rage is a little bit more dangerous to use. You have this risk. You are much more powerful. You're more likely to hit. You do more damage. You can resist mental attacks better because of this bonus to your will saving throw. You're a little easier to hit, but you're much harder to kill. But once you leave the rage, that's a risk. And not only that, but in 3.5, when the rage ends, you become fatigued. So there is massive benefits for it, but there are also drawbacks that you have to take into consideration. Of course, there are other aspects to this. You can't use charisma or dexterity or intelligence-based skills, with the exception of skills dealing with movement. So balance, escape artist, ride, as well as intimidation. You can still be very scary, especially when you're in rage. So those things you can still do. You can't cast spells. You can't do anything that requires a concentration. Anything that takes any kind of thought, basically, can't do it in rage. That includes using wands, scrolls, anything like that. Can't do it. You also can't use feats that require thought, except combat feats, with the exception of combat expertise, but we're not going to get into that too much right now on the details of what those feats do. Basically, you can use any combat-oriented action, or ability, or feature, whatever, and you can still move. Escape artist, ride, balance, the things that keep you on your feet and keep you fighting, you can still do. Basically, everything else is out of the question. You're not allowed to do it while you're in rage. But how long does rage last in 3.5? There's not a set number. It lasts for 3 rounds plus your Constitution modifier. Now, it does use your enhanced Constitution modifier, so you're getting a +2 when you go into rage. So say you have a 12 Constitution, that gives you a +1. But you go into rage, you now have a 16, that gives you a +3. Your rage now lasts for 6 rounds. As you go up in level, you might increase your Constitution score. Your rage can last longer. In addition, you start off being able to use it only once. You then get an additional, once per day. Let's clarify that. Not just once and then you've done it. Once per day. But as you go up level, every 4th level, you're able to use it one more time. So at 4th level, you can use it twice. At 8th level, 3 times. 12th level, 4 times. 16th level, 5 times. And finally, at 20th level, you can use it 6 times. But these bonuses are very powerful. At low levels, a +4 to strength and constitution, and a +2 to will saves. Fantastic bonuses. Now, of course, the Barbarian is based in rage. And so as you go up level, the rage gets more powerful. So for instance, as we go up level, at a level 11, we get what is called Greater Rage. And this just increases your modifiers. Now instead of giving a +4 to strength, constitution, and a +2 to will, it is now a +6, +6, and +3. However, the penalty to armor class does not change. This again increases at level 20. You now get a +8 to strength, a +8 to constitution, and a +4 to your will saves. But again, the armor class penalty remains at a -2. Also, at level 17, you lose the penalty of becoming fatigued after the rage ends. So the rage continues to get better as you go up. You can use it more often. As you are able to increase your constitution, you're able to maintain your rage longer. The bonuses get even better. I mean, a +8, that's a +4 to attack and damage. And that is at level 20, you're actually not, at level 20, you're actually getting 80 extra hit points. That is massive. Now, you will note that 5th edition does rage much differently. Because remember that in 5th edition, modifiers are taboo. We don't like modifiers in 5th edition. 5th edition gets rid of almost all modifiers. And so we can't do the same thing. We can't give you a bonus to strength and constitution. Because we just don't give bonuses, this kind of bonuses, in 5th edition. So let us look at what 5th edition actually did for rage. What do we got here? We have, you get advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. That's, kind of the +4 to strength, but you don't get the bonus to constitution. It's only to strength. Now, you do get the bonus damage here. It says, you get, whenever you make a strength-based attack with a melee weapon, you get a bonus to your damage, as listed in the table here. And you can see you start off with a +2, which would be the same as getting a +4 to your strength. And it continues to go up. And then finally, this is what actually makes rage a little bit more powerful in 5th edition, but only a little bit. And that is, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Basically, weapons, you take half damage of. That's the way it works here. Well, you'll note, first of all, that the extra damage and the advantage on strength is very much how the 3.5 would translate to 5th, but where's this resistance isn't in 3.5. Rage doesn't give you damage resistance in 3.5, but it does in 5th edition. And this is taken from 3.5. We do have something similar, but not exactly the same. And this is the thing. When they're in rage, the Barbarian gets this resistance, but if they're not in rage, they don't get this resistance. In 3.5, starting at 10th level, the Barbarian simply gets what's known as damage reduction. They only get a 1, But all this is that anytime they are hit by a weapon, they reduce the damage by 1. Then at 13th level, 16th level, and 19th level, I believe, they get an increase in it. Eventually they get 4. A damage reduction of 4. But they don't have to be enraged to get this. Barbarians just have it. In 5th edition, you have to be enraged to get this damage resistance. If you read the rest of this, of course, they can't use spells, they can't concentrate on anything. But you'll note that the rage simply lasts for 1 minute. Regardless of what your constitution is, regardless of what your ability is, what your level is, doesn't matter. It lasts for 1 minute. You could be a barbarian with a 3 constitution, and your rage will last 1 minute, just like that 20th level barbarian with a constitution of 20. Doesn't matter. It's 1 minute. Now, this is an important difference here, though. In 5th edition, to go into a rage requires you to use a bonus action. And in 5th edition, you basically have 4 different actions you can take on your turn. You have your standard action, you have your movement action, you have your bonus action, and you have a reaction. Sometimes you might get some bonus, you might get additional actions, but in general, this is the standard, 4 actions. Going into rage requires you to use one of those actions. Now, this is very different in 3.5. Partly 3.5 doesn't really, they have bonus actions. You should only get 1 and all that. But in 3.5, rage does not require any action to use. You can enter rage as a free action on your turn. So you can't do it on somebody else's turn. But as long as it's your turn, you can enter rage as a free action. 5th edition requires you to use your bonus action to do it. And that's a big difference. But you'll also note the 5th edition does not have you become fatigued, or what would be called in 5th edition exhausted, when rage ends. It just ends. It can end prematurely if you are if you are knocked unconscious, or it says if you have not attacked or been damaged since your last turn, then the rage will end. But nothing happens when it ends. You can end it voluntarily too. You'll also note in the table it states you can use your rage a certain number of times. It starts off with 2 instead of 1, but it goes down to 6. Now remember, in 3.5, you got 6 at level 20, because it was every 4 levels. In 5th edition, at level 20, it's unlimited. And there's no set pattern to it. If in 3rd edition, you can calculate it. You take your level, divide it by 4, and add 1. That's how many times you can rage in 3rd edition. Nice, simple calculation. In 5th edition, there is no calculation because it's all random when you get it. But at level 20, you don't need it. You can just do it whenever you want. Another point here, in 3.5, rage, you can only do it once per combat. There is no such restriction in 5th edition. As long as you have a use of it, you can use it. If the combat happens to last long enough that your rage ends, you can then just go back into rage on your next turn. And just like 3.5 has those upgrades that you get at higher levels that make rage a little better. In 5th edition, you have other class features that, when you are in rage, will let you do other things. It might give you a bonus attack. It might increase your damage. And remember, in 3.5, in rage, you got a -2 to your armor class, because if the idea is that you're in a rage, you're berserking, you get strong, you get durable, but you get reckless. Well, in 5th edition, you don't take a penalty to your armor class. But later on, I believe at level 2, you get not restless, but reckless rage. And this means that you always attack with advantage. So now you're getting that bonus to attack that you would have gotten in 3.5 from the increased strength. But instead of getting a modifier, of course, they give you advantage. But you also take disadvantage. But you don't take advantage. But anybody who is attacking you also gets advantage, which is to simulate that -2 to armor class from 3.5. It's the same idea. But it's not required in rage. You can rage and not do a reckless attack. You have to choose to do a reckless attack. So you can rage without being reckless. It's a standard that you rage without being reckless in 5th edition. It's required that you be reckless in 3.5. These are the basics of rage between the two. Things still generally work the same, but it's got to be tailored to the different systems. We will end that here. This is the basics of Rage, and we will talk about the Barbarian a little bit more in the next one.